Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to us by Charlotte Malrich, who had this listener shout out. She just told us that we could say whatever we want. Again.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Yeah. So this week, we want to shout out the Disrupt J20 Legal Fund. As you know, a lot of stuff happened during the U.S. presidential inauguration on January 20th, and people were arrested. And
lots of people.
We just need to support those people. So head on over to Disrupt J20 and donate if you can.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
This is episode 217.
Yeah, we have Rebecca Buck on from the Eric King support crew.
So this week, we are going to roll out a little bit of a format change. By little bit, I mean a complete format change. So we decided that we wanted to try to expand the show into as much markets as possible. And one of the ways of doing that is to get on terrestrial radio. One of the first things we needed to do on terrestrial radio was to fit a predefined format. So that's what we're doing. We're cutting the show down to basically 28 minutes, which is the length of a terrestrial radio show.
So our main segments are going to be edited and shortened down, but you are going to notice that we will be having a new segment in addition to the main segment to enable us to bring forth more issues that we all care about.
We are going to be offering the unedited episodes for all of our members. So we're going to throw those up as bonus episodes. You can get the full unedited interviews. They're still going to be long in length, 40 minutes, an hour-ish in length. And they're going to be available to all of our members. If you want to become a member, head on over to whichsidepodcast.com. So very recently, the whole world saw Mr. Trump actually come down with a lot of the rhetoric that he's been promising to come down with and instituted the so-called Muslim ban. And it has had wide-reaching consequences over this last weekend that are still not actually fully understood. It's unbelievably scary. I don't think that we need to go into any details as to why we would completely oppose this action. I think it's pretty well understood. But I wanted to touch base on making sure that we don't normalize this type of behavior or the thought process that allows people to accept this type of behavior.
Yeah, we need to fight against it in our everyday lives. Whenever we see it happening, we need to speak out against it, whether it be at work or in the grocery store. We can't normalize racism.
And we need to actually attack it on the very small things. Like when you hear somebody talking about, oh, well, they're only trying to stop criminals or terrorists, actually go in and stop them and say, no, this is not what's actually happening, right? When they talk about building a border wall, this is not about stopping criminals. When they talk about, revoking green cards from people coming in, this is not about stopping criminals. This is about stopping a very specific group of individuals that they deem beneath them. So given everything that is happening, there's a good chance you're going to find yourselves in the streets and not just fighting this in the grocery store. And if you find yourself in the streets, please just make sure you kind of plan for that. Be ready for that, right? Read up on security culture. Go take some Know Your Rights classes again. It never hurts to redo it. Grab some friends and practice being interrogated. That shit is scary. This is all stuff we've talked about before, but it's showing how important it's going to be moving forward. And just keep yourself safe. That's the most important thing out there. Keep yourself safe, but get out there and make sure that we let everyone know that this shit will not be tolerated.
And don't be intimidated by the Black Bloc. Crime Think has a great article on why they exist, how they exist, and how you can get involved as well. So we'll post that in the show notes.
Make sure to check it out. And just to reemphasize what Jordan said, don't be intimidated by the Black Bloc. So every week we'll bring you this short little segment, 5 minutes or less, about anything that we feel is important to draw your attention to. If you have any ideas, if you want us to focus on anything, shoot us an email at info@whichsidepodcast.com. If you think this is just fucking stupid, shoot us an email too. That's cool. And now, I sincerely hope you enjoyed this interview with Rebecca Buck from Eric King's support crew. This is the spot in the show where we're going to beg you for some money. It's an ad. Let's get through it together. We would really appreciate it if you head on over to whichsidecollective.org and help support the show. And in return, we'll send you some sweet shit. And you get to pick that shit that we send you. It's kind of how it works. You can pick a patch. You can pick t-shirts, hoodies, totes. We have lots of stuff. We have zines. So head on over to whichsidecollective.org. Give us your money. We'll give you some shit. And we'll all be happy.
While you're checking things out, be sure to check us out on social media. Just go to whichsidepodcast.com, click on the social tab, and you can find all the social media accounts that we have. Want to hear your voice saying fuck shit damn at the end of an episode? Just dial 424-ANARCHY and leave a message. That's 424-262-7249.
Let's jump right into it. Do you want to give a brief history on Eric King? Most of our listeners are going to be pretty familiar, but you want to just give a brief synopsis?
Yeah, sure. So he is a vegan anarchist prisoner currently. Well, and hopefully this is something that we'll get to talk about. He's currently at Florence in Colorado, but he originally was arrested and charged for throwing a hammer through a kind of government building and then throwing in 2 lit Molotov cocktails that did not ignite. So that's kind of just the basis of his charges. He was arrested in September 2014. And let's see the timeline. He accepted a non-cooperative plea deal in March 2016. So if you if we can do the math, he was waiting pre-trial for about a year and a half in this awful jail called Leavenworth. And my geography isn't great in the U.S., but I know that it was in a different state than the one he's in now. So it was he had a really hard time there. And, he was getting isolated from his friends and family. He's, as I said, vegan, so he wasn't getting throughout actually his whole time. He's been having problems with vegan food, but he wasn't getting the vegan food that he required. He was getting into a lot of altercations with the guards and other prisoners. I'm sure that people are aware of some of the mentalities in prison and the kind of racial segregation that occurs in prison. And so he was resisting allying or joining or having any association with white supremacy. So that got him in a lot of hot water, and he spent time in solitary for that. Now, that may not make sense to people because you would think that it's good to resist white supremacy, but just the way the dynamics work, there's a lot of pressure to be in certain groups. And if you're not, then people will instigate fights so that you end up going to the shoe. Or to my surprise, I couldn't believe this was happening, but at Leavenworth, perhaps because a lot of people were transferring after they had been arrested and waiting for pretrial, there was so much snitching happening. So lots of prisoners would snitch on each other to get each other sent to solitary. And I can only think that it's because it wasn't people's permanent prison, because I just don't understand how that culture people could survive that, but that's kind of another story. But anyway, so that's kind of his, there's a lot more to his charges and things like that. But generally, Eric is what I got on his support team through writing to him and being his friend. And he's such a like hilarious person. He's so wonderful to write to. Throughout all the things that have happened to him, he's always held such high spirits. It's been really incredible when we get documents, from whatever incident has occurred, or sorry, my cat's up against the computer. From whatever incident has occurred, he'll always have these little comments scribbled in the margins, or like laughing at the COs that did something. So it's been really inspiring to work with him, because it just doesn't matter what they do. He never gives up, and he's always resisting. I think even that is an act of resistance, the ability just to be positive throughout so much repression by the state, to be able to understand the consequences and to continue to resist. And certainly there are lots of reasons why somebody would legitimately not do that or lose their positivity, because the state repression can be horrendous. Certainly working with Eric, though, has been really nice. And he got married as well while he was I think that was still while he was at Leavenworth. And so he has a partner and 2 stepchildren now. So it's very exciting. And there's pictures of his partner, I think, and him online, but I don't think the children, for obvious reasons.
I love that you brought up like his optimism and his consistent resistance, and you can really see it in his poems that are posted on the support site, which I really love. That you can really you see that in like all of his writings.
Yeah. There are some of them. I think my favorite, I just had bookmarked it, was "Am I allowed to breathe?" Which sounds like the least positive one, but but yeah. But it still has that, like, at the end he's saying, "Does my every firing neuron have sinister intentions?" Yes. So it still has that like resistance, that like fuck you in it. So it may not be positive, but it's like full of anger. So that's one of my favorites.
So it seems like most of the time that he's been in has been spent in like solitary or in the shoe. Is that true?
Yeah. Yep, that's true. Since his time when he first got arrested to he is currently in the shoe. So if I could maybe talk about what's currently going on, that will able to help me reference some of the things that are going on. So things are kind of going, as fine as they can be for prisoners. But since an issue occurred in December, we've really been hard at work trying to support him. So his sentencing was in June of last year. And then he was transferred to Inglewood in Colorado, I think around August. So from about August to January, it was kind of, guards always kind of gave visitors a hard time, and maybe he wouldn't be receiving mail, but otherwise was okay. And then in December, his partner was visiting him, and one of the guards whose name, and it's going to be important why I'm mentioning this, Officer Eglinton, he followed Eric into the bathroom in the visitation room in the area and started to harass him in the bathroom. He threatened Eric that he was going to ruin every future visit. And this is, to me, the most serious part. He threatened to have his children, as in the officer's children, hurt Eric's stepchildren, because I guess they all live in the same kind of community or area, something like that. So threatening children, I mean, I know CEOs are pieces of shit, but I really did not expect that one. So Eric and his partner filed complaints. She talked to the lieutenant to have the officer removed from his post, and what we were told was that he was, in fact, removed and given a warning for his behavior. I don't know how you can fact check that one, but that's what they told us. And then the next visit, our old friend, Officer Eglinton, is there again after he was asked to not, because of the harassment and the threats, be around for Eric's visitations. But he's there and is forced, or Eric's family is forced to interact with him, including the kids. So then Eric filed to again have him removed from visitations, and his partner also filed complaints with the Inspector General. Okay, so this is kind of closer to the end of December. So then they say, all right, we're going to get back to you by January 9th. January 9th rolls around, Eric's partner goes to visit him, and he's not there. And we don't know where he is. So it took us about, I think, 24 hours to figure out that he had been transferred to another prison in Florence, or at Florence. So we were told he is awaiting disciplinary charges, and that's why he's been sent there. So the message being, if you complain about being harassed and your family threatened, we will bury you in charges and fuck with your life. The charges are against him writing poetry and drawings that are, I think, like incite violence against the state or violence against the BOP, the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of ridiculous. So, well, not kind of, it is. So the problem with the disciplinary charges is that because I live in another country, sometimes it takes me a while to learn all the different ways that the prisons work in the US. But as far as I know, if you're in a low security prison, if you get more points for the different incidents that occur, like if you're getting in fights and you're going to the shoe a lot, you'll get more and more points. And then if you reach a certain number, then they transfer you to a medium security prison because I guess you're a problem. And then I'm not sure after that if you get moved to a high security prison. But Englewood was low security, and he's currently being held at Florence in the shoe. And we think it's likely he's not going to go back to Englewood or another low security prison, that he's going to be transferred to a medium security prison, which means that he is going to have limited visitations and phone calls and access to commissary, which for him is particularly challenging because he's vegan, and the BOP only are required to give prisoners one vegan meal a day. They provide one or three alternative options to meat, I think, but they're all vegetarian and not vegan. So without access to commissary, that will significantly impact his diet, his nutrition, and generally overall well-being. So you have to be kind of calculated in your response to all of this, because Eric, if I'm on the podcast talking about this, the COs are listening. So I just want to say, fuck you, COs, if you're listening. And, we always have to be calculated in what we do because we know that there's going to be a response. Obviously, he's facing what we consider to be retaliation charges for filing a complaint against an officer. But, with Eric's permission, we decided that we're going to do a call-in campaign because, this is ridiculous. So now I'm not sure when this will be airing, but they've told us that,
Probably Monday, tomorrow.
Yeah, we can do it as fast as we if we need to. Yeah.
Right after we're done. No. So they've told us since he's been in Florence for a couple weeks, and since he has arrived, they've told us that, we don't really know when the disciplinary hearing is, and for a while we weren't sure what the charges were. But they told us, okay, it's going to be on Friday, and then Friday passes and it didn't happen. And then we thought it was going to be on the 27th, and then we found out yesterday or this morning that it didn't happen. So we're pretty sure it's going to be on February the 4th or the 3rd, because that's the Friday. So what we're asking people to do is to call in to the BOP to complain. And we're going to put the specific numbers and a script actually up on the support website. There's currently one up right now, but it just needs a little bit of tweaking because they don't make it easy, obviously. Some of the numbers that we had originally tried weren't working properly, so we're just adjusting who we're calling. But that will be changed shortly, and we're asking that people call in all this week to complain about these charges, to complain about the treatment. He's been in the SHU the whole time. He, again, hasn't had access to proper food. And we want the fucking BOP to know that we're watching, and we're not going to let this treatment continue. And we will continue to fight for Eric, that we're not going to give up. I think they think we're going to stop if they just keep fucking him around and leaving us in the dark of where he's going and when he's going and if he's being changed to medium, low security prisons, but we're not going to stop. So we're asking people to call in and show their support for him.
Whenever we talk about like how people can help support prisoners, the number one thing that always gets brought up is, write them letters and be involved that way. But for people that want to take the next step, what kind of advice would you give them?
I want to meet all these people who want to do more than that. Where are those people? I would say that this is one thing you can do. After building a relationship with a prisoner, you can offer to, if you have the finances, and I know that's a problem for a lot of people, but you can always send them books or magazines, or you can send them money for their commissary. And that's something that I do with a couple of people. Because that's like the letters and support mean so much to people. That's very clear. The commissary support also means a lot to them, right? So they can actually have some items that are slightly more enjoyable than what they're provided with. But outside of that, because that requires a certain amount of financial stability, the other thing that I think would be really important is also the prevention aspect that I'm talking about, and also going to demonstrations and to keep pressure on the administrative or like the COs or whatever on the treatment of people. Now, that might seem like a reformist attitude, but I think when you're doing a spectrum of activities, it's it's okay to do some reformist work at times. And I can just imagine like the eye rolls that are happening right now between all the people for the podcast. But like, this is like the call-in that we're doing for Eric. That really doesn't take up a lot of time, but it means a lot to us and it means a lot to Eric. And that's something that you can do outside of writing. I know that the NYC ABC does New Year's Eve noise demos. So that's another thing that you could do. And then looking at the ways that people or certain laws that are targeting particular populations of people and how you can support the preventative measures, right? So if we're specifically looking kind of like the thing we were talking about at the beginning, the contemporary issues of immigration, detention, and oh my God, what are going to happen to all these people? It's so worrisome. But going out and supporting the organizations that are on the ground and doing work, I think is another way that it kind of is like an indirect route, but it hopefully prevents more people from going to prison. I think that's one of the most challenging aspects of activism is you don't see all of the things that you prevented from happening. And I'm a big advocate on every so often reflecting on all the things that you and the people you work with have accomplished, the letters you've written and the ones you've gotten back and the campaigns and the banners and all the events that you've had over the years, because it can be so soul crushing to continually face state repression against the people that you care about and the people that you're fighting with. So I really encourage people to take time to reflect on all of the accomplishments that they've made. And hopefully just imagine all of the things you've prevented from happening.
Well, what are some ways that people can find out more about Eric's case and ways to support him?
People can go to supportericking.org. And then there's the send a letter section. We don't know how long he's going to be at Florence, but we're still encouraging people to write to him. So the address is online. Because of his disciplinary charges don't include any kind of content that could be held against him. Keep it, you can say like, I'm in solidarity with you and, I am feeling for all the things you're going through and I'm sorry, or it sucks that you're in solitary, blah, blah, blah. But, think about the fact that your letters are being read and they can be held against him, especially at any time, really, but especially because he has these charges coming up.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always,
fuck, shit, damn.